in a fucking thing in his life. I researched. I did every single fucking possible thing I could for the next 7 hours or so, and just researched it. And by the end of that day, when I went to bed, probably one in the morning, 2 in the morning, I'd literally spent, from that day when we went into class was like 9 a.m. till when I went to bed or whatever. I spent the entire day just researching. And I remember waking up early the next day. So we had to be there by like 9 in the morning. I remember waking up early the next day, probably at like 5 or 6 in the morning, and making sure I got a couple more minutes in, a couple more hours in actually, of doing some research. So I was like, in my mind, I'd researched all night. I went to bed. I woke up, and in my mind, I was like processing, like visualizing how to work the clutch, how to work the throttle, how to work the brake, where to put my foot, how to work the gears. I was just doing everything in my mind, so I'd already visualized how I was going to do it in class when we had to get on those bikes and actually ride them up a little bit, do the duck walk, but then actually start to ride them, because at the end of that day, you got to ride those bikes around, and you got to pass that test or you're failing. Now, we went to class, and when class started the next day, it was still fucking tough, but I actually had an idea of how to do it. The day before, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, and I was like scared and nervous the whole time, and I couldn't figure it out in my mind. I couldn't wrap my mind around how everything worked, how your hands worked, and the hand-eye coordination and all that stuff. I didn't have the neuroplasticity to pull it off and actually understand it. But when the next day started, I wasn't fucking good. Actually, I still sucked. But for the first time, I had an idea of how it all worked, and I just remember focusing, dialing in on everything the instructor was saying, and I got kind of caught up to speed. And I didn't have to do like the slow, juvenile, whatever, little kiddie kind of way of doing things. Like I just kind of went with everybody else and started doing what they were doing. And as the day went on, I went from thinking like, I'm gonna fucking fail this thing horribly. I shouldn't even take the test because I'm probably gonna crash. As the day went on, I went to thinking that, you know what, there's a chance I might actually pass this thing. I might actually get my motorcycle license by the end of the day. I didn't know if I was actually going to be able to do it, but I was starting to think that there was a chance I could. So as the day went on, I focused in, I dialed in, I tried hard. I literally outworked everybody in that class because I had to. They were all better than me. I absolutely had to outwork them, and I did. By the time 5 o'clock rolled around, the class wrapped up and the test came. We each had to do our little thing one at a time. By the time that time came, I was feeling not confident. Actually, I wasn't confident at all, but I was feeling like there's a decent chance I'm going to pass this thing. Like there was a 50-50 shot. I might actually fucking do this thing. And, 24 hours before that point, I was just, like, scared to death. Like, I made a huge mistake even signing up because I was 100% going to fail. So the test comes around. Everybody goes up. I'm, like, one of the last ones to go. My brother goes through. He gets, like, say, if 20 is the failing score and, the lower the number, the better. My brother goes in. He gets, like, a 10, and he passes with flying colors. A couple of the other people, there was one guy, he got like a 4 or 5. He was really good. He passed with flying colors. My buddy got like a 3 or 4. He actually got the best score because, like I said, he was, dirt bike rider, all this other stuff. He's really good. So he got like a 3 or 4. He smoked the test. A couple people got like 15s and 16s, and they passed. I get up there. I fuck up on a couple of things. I'm nervous a little bit, but I keep my composure. I keep my focus. I have a belief, not a great belief, but a belief in myself that I can probably do it, or I might be able to do it, and I stick with it, and as it turns out, I get a fucking 19, a 19 out of 20, just barely pass the thing, but I pass, and I get my license, and from that point forward, like, it wasn't like I just got a bike and, hit the road and started going fast and was a great rider. No, actually, I spent like the next couple of months going to back roads and parking lots and just working my ass off and practicing everything I learned in that little class in those 48 hours. And I became a great rider because I put in the time, I put in the effort, and I learned from my mistakes. I learned from my failure. I learned from my rejection. I actually learned really quickly. So in the past, I probably would have actually just gave in and been like, yeah, fuck it. Maybe I'll try this next season or next summer. It's not going to happen this year. But at that age point, I was like 19, 20 years old. This had been right after I'd learned how to get good with women. It had been right after I'd beaten my depression and anxiety problems. It it was after those times of great struggle, of rejection and failure, I had a new mindset at success. I had a new framework of what was possible and what I could do. And again, I wasn't fucking great. I got a 19. I mean, I barely passed the damn thing, but I passed because of my mindset, because I shifted my belief and I shifted what I thought possible. I didn't give in to what was naturally calling me, drawing me. I was naturally drawn to failing that class. Trust me, I should have failed that class. But because I put in the work, because I learned from my mistakes, because I looked at that rejection as a way for me to actually fucking grow from, as a way for me to step up and take charge and research and do the work, put the work in, even if it was just in that one little, shortened time frame, it's exactly what I'm talking about here. It's exactly what you have to do when you face rejection. If you face rejection and you don't want to fail at something, you have to make some fucking changes and you have to take some action. You have to do some research. You have to take, you have to find those sources, those people who have done those things that you've already done, and you have to follow their advice. Shorten down the time of failure, of messing up, by borrowing the failures and mess ups of other people. See what they've done. See what they did, messed up in that didn't work. See what they've done that they did right, that's working for them great, that makes them an expert in what they're doing, and learn from those people. You can learn from any rejection you have. You just have to apply yourself and take action on that and make a point that you're not just going to give in. You can continue to give in whenever you're failing at. You can continue to give in and the many obstacles life throws your way. And that's fine. You can be a regular person, because most people are like that. But if you want to be an elite man, if you want to be someone who gets shit that they want, who gets the most out of life, who becomes the best version of themselves, you really have to get down this skill of learning from your failures, the skill of learning from your rejections, the skill of learning from other people who have been there before you, who have done the things that you want to do, who have achieved and had those successes that you long to have. That's what we're talking about here. That's what rejection is all about. It's learning from these lessons and being able to become the best man you can be, become unstoppable from those things, because nothing can hold you back. When you really are rejection proof, when, like I said, you're going to have these rejections, you're going to have these failures, but when you can get past these things without them holding you back, and when you're learning from those things, you are rejection proof and you become unstoppable. There's nothing, absolutely nothing in this world that can stop you. I've had countless rejections in my life, whether that was from school or women or tests or social situations, parties, non-invites, not chosen for different team sports, even the business, even Elite Man Magazine for the first couple of years was a total failure. I launched the site thinking a ton of people were going to come on. It was going to change my life. I was going to be a celebrity. I was going to be famous. I was going to be rich. I was going to be cool. It took me 2 fucking years before people really started coming to the site and actually buying anything. I didn't have my first paying clients. I mean, I had maybe 1 or 2 in those 2 years, but I didn't have any consistent clients for a couple of years, for 2 years. And it was probably 3 years into the business that I actually really started getting consistent traffic. I started building the site. The podcast came around. I started growing the podcast. It took a while, man, before I was able to see success in business. And you hear it all the time. It takes, 3 to 5 years for a business to be successful, for a business to be profitable. It was absolutely the case with me. 3 years really for the business to even be semi-profitable. And man, it was a fucking long, hard journey to get to that point. I was very naive in the beginning of that. But like we're talking about here, I learned from that. I didn't let those initial failures hold me back. I didn't let the non-traffic, the non-visitors, the non-customers for a couple of years, I didn't let those deter me. I was very relentless, very persistent in my goal to succeed in this, my goal to make this happen. It was what I wanted to do. It's still what I want to do. I love doing this stuff. So when you're passionate about something, when you really want to succeed in something, you'll do anything you can to make it happen. And the important thing is that you continue to learn. If you continue to do the same things over and over again, I think Einstein has that quote where if I forget exactly what it is, but if you do the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, something like that. I mean, it's true. If you continue to do the same things over and over again and think you're going to get better at it, then you're fucking insane. There's something there's something wrong with you. There's something there that you're missing and that you have to fix. If you want to see success and you're doing the same thing over and over again and it's not fucking working, you're seeing failure and failure, you have to switch things up. You have to find different people. You have to find experts who have done things that you want to achieve. Maybe it's the experts you're following and their advice, just sucks. And so in that case, you got to find different experts. You got to find different people who maybe resonate with you better, or maybe their advice is better suited for you and what you're doing. But if you continue to do the same shit, you follow the same guys over and over again, and for the last 3, 4, 5 years, you're doing the same shit. You're trying the same stuff. Whatever it is, we're just talking business now, but you're doing the same business stuff over and over again. That is insane. You're not going anywhere. Stop doing that type of thing. Maybe even, you got to switch paths, and you got to switch your whole business philosophy. Maybe the product or the service you offer is just not fucking sellable. It's just not what people want. Maybe your idea is flawed, and it was flawed from the get-go. And I hate to say it, but maybe you got to find something else. But before you do that, before you get to that point, I recommend trying a number of different things first. I don't recommend just giving up on your idea, especially if it's your passion. That could be, end game kind of thing after you try a number of things. I do recommend instead trying different things first and experimenting with things until you find something that sticks and that works for you. It took me a few years before I found things that worked for me, but I was continually trying things and I was giving them a fair shake too. I wasn't just, bouncing from one thing to another every single week. I was giving them a few months, like trying different techniques, philosophies, strategies, SEO things, social media things, marketing things, different. Every single thing you could think of, I was trying. Giving it, a couple months of trying it out. If it didn't work for me, if I wasn't doing it right, whatever, I fucked it up, I would try something else. Eventually, again, it took me probably 3 years or so, but eventually I got to the point where things started just fucking working for me, and I took that stuff and I ran with it ever since. And that's why I'm successful in the Elite Man brand. That's why I'm successful with Elite Man Magazine, Elite Man Podcast, is because I was constantly learning from the mistakes I was making and constantly not being afraid to try different things and see what else other people were doing that was working for them. So I certainly switch things up, and I recommend you do the same thing if you're not seeing success in those areas. But the one thing you have to remember too is having that drive to succeed. If you do something and you're not passionate about it, if you don't really give a shit about it, it's going to be really tough for you to be successful no matter what you do, no matter what technique or strategy you implement. If you're not passionate about that, if you don't have the drive to make that fucking thing happen, then it's not going to happen. That's something, too, I dabbled around with way back when, probably 5-6 years ago, when I was just kind of fucking around with websites. I would do, like, these little niche websites back when those were popular, and I'd do just different things that I wasn't passionate about. I had a couple shitty little websites, and I put up a couple little articles, and I was always trying to, like, figure out how to, like, quickly make money online if it was possible, and watching these YouTube videos and stuff like that, and man, it was such a waste of time thinking about it now, but being younger and more naive too, even back 6 years ago or so, I was always doing these like things to see what I could do, because I heard other people doing it. I knew people could make money online. I didn't know how to do it, but I would try like these different niche websites, these little blogs, and just do these things for a couple of months and like try to like do SEO and optimize like links and stuff like that. Needless to say, they were all fucking failures because I didn't give a shit about those little websites. I had like maybe 3 or so websites. I don't even know. Maybe 3 websites that I had, and they're all niche websites, and it was supposed to help me, rank because they had like certain keywords in their web title, in the website's title, and I was supposed to like, kind of game the system to ranking me higher, and then I could like use Google ads and things like that if I ranked to the top of the site to get traffic and to get money. That was basically the gist of what I was trying to get at. I did these things for a couple months and they fucking didn't do anything. But first of all, they weren't successful. I couldn't get them to rank. Second of all, I fucking hated it and it was such a waste of time. And I was miserable trying to do it, thinking like, oh, why isn't this working? Like, all these guys online that I watched said it would work. Why is it not working for me? I was miserable doing it. I was getting pissed because it wasn't working. Eventually, I just fucking dropped it all because it sucked and it was a waste of my time. And I didn't like doing it. I wasn't even remotely excited about doing that kind of work. it was basically just another job that I hated. So I was, I kind of like changed my whole philosophy on making money, and got away from the focus